There's someone that sits next to me. We would have never talked in a million years. And then here I am learning about trucking in Indiana, and it feeds me. It feeds me when we don't have to have this mask or this shell on. And there's something about obviously being in your bathing suit, we're all kind of in the same environment and we're all doing it for health, that breaks down that mask and that barrier where you can be like, hey, dude, I'm a human. You're a human. Like, how are you? Like, are you okay? And not coffee kind of chat, cocktail chat, but like, what makes you happy?
Welcome to Seacoast Stories, a podcast about the people, businesses, and newsmakers that make the Seacoast an American hidden gem. I'm Trey Farkas, and on today's episode, how Catherine Markovsky hopes to bring the Seacoast closer together, one float at a time. Here's something to know about me. I am obsessed with health and wellness. I exercise 6 days a week. I lift weights at Seacoast Kettlebell. I hike in the White Mountains, do yoga at Three Bridges. I run along Ocean Avenue, and I bike everywhere. I just love moving my body and how it makes me feel. I'm also very deliberate with what I put into my body, how I spend my time, and I would venture to guess I am the most hydrated man on the Seacoast. I don't say any of this to brag, well, maybe that last part, but to emphasize just how much I care about leading a healthy life. I don't advise you to be like this, by the way, because you could say I have an unhealthy obsession with being healthy, but it's just who I am, and I'm at peace with it. But because of this obsession, I'm always staying up to date with the latest studies, the data, the popular books. And everywhere I look these days, I can't escape the health trends getting endorsed by the likes of podcaster Joe Rogan, Dr. Andrew Huberman, Gary Brecka, and many more. If you've spent any time online in the past 2 years or so, you've probably heard about the potential life-changing benefits of the cold plunge. There's also floating, grounding, breath work, red light therapy, darkness chambers, in addition to the old guard of things like acupuncture, meditation, and massage. It's a lot to absorb. Staying healthy is seemingly more complex than it's ever been. But where there's smoke, there's fire. And there's clearly something going on here. People are pushing back against traditional medicine. Going to the doctor's office, getting a prescription, taking a pill, and just hoping for the best? Well, people are getting fed up with that, even on the Seacoast. And today's guest is on the front lines of fighting back. Catherine Markovsky has believed in alternative healing for a long time. A former acupuncturist, Catherine brought float therapy and the cold plunge craze to the Seacoast when she opened the aptly named FLOTE in 2017. FLOTE is a, quote, soul gym, which pairs ancient wisdom with modern techniques to help your body and mind feel better. They offer floating, sauna, cold plunge, meditation, sound healings, and more. It's a popular place, and everyone I know who goes there raves about it. What are the origins of float? Why did Catherine feel the Seacoast needed these modalities? And just how legit is the science? I'll let Catherine explain with her Seacoast story.
I was a sickly kid. I'd struggled with asthma, and if I got a cold, it would go into pneumonia, and then I'd be on steroids. And I remember talking to doctors and saying, how do I not do this? Like, how do I break the cycle? And they say, you don't. You just, when you get sick, then you're going to take these meds. And I took a class at UCI that was talking about traditional Chinese medicine and how the real goal behind it is to keep your body at balance. And I thought, that is what I'm looking for. And one day I was sitting out on my balcony, and it really was like a voice came out of nowhere and said, you're an acupuncturist. And I said, oh my God, there's no way. Like, I cannot be an acupuncturist. Like, that's weird. It was definitely like, that was like 1990 or something. Like, there weren't a lot of people out there. And I hate needles. And like, so that's just off the plate. And I decided to listen to it and go to a school and ended up in getting a master's degree in Chinese medicine. And I realized as soon as I got there, I'm like, oh, like this is what I do. But I never would have imagined it.
Wow. So in the 1990s, very different culturally in terms of health and wellness then as compared to now. Now, this kind of thinking, these modalities are much more accepted. But I imagine around then, what you were studying was considered far out there. So how did you have the confidence to pursue this? And how did you kind of deal with the perception that your friends and family might have of you doing this weird thing?
Oh, for sure. I was the witch doctor in the family who was wasting her money getting this degree. And I just saw the results and I saw what it did for me. I started doing Chinese herbal medicine is as big a part as acupuncture is in the medicine, and treating myself, treating friends, and then getting in the clinic and actually seeing results and realizing, okay, I can do this and I can facilitate other people's healing. It was amazing. And luckily in Santa Monica, there were pockets of acupuncture around the country. And there was a big one there. There was a really nice community. Like you could pick an acupuncturist to be your primary care for like Blue Cross Blue Shield at that point. So they were a little bit more evolved, honestly, than New Hampshire is now. But yeah, it was amazing. I just had to keep walking through it because I just knew that was what I was doing and I couldn't get out of it.
Now, what exactly are the results that you were seeing from acupuncture?
Oh my gosh. I mean, people that were scheduled for disc surgery, people that were scheduled for heart disease, going in and getting their heart fixed. You could get somebody on a different diet. You can get somebody on different herbal medicine. People with knee replacements, so we're going to do things with meniscus. Acupuncture with knees, like it just stimulates it. It brings the energy back in there. And the body wants to heal. The body wants to get back to a place of stasis. And because of our lifestyle, it's hard to do. With acupuncture, just gives the body that little bit of a boost. It's like bringing in extra workers to the scene. And then the body's like, oh, thank God. And it takes over. So in China, there are Chinese medicine hospitals. So if you have a horrible sinus infection, you could go to a regular hospital and get surgery and have antibiotics, or you could go to a Chinese medicine hospital and do just herbal medicine and acupuncture. It really can treat almost anything, that Western medicine treats. I love doing fertility work. There's things like metformin now, that very, very simple drug that can get someone who really has had such an issue with fertility absolutely ovulating again and ready to go. And they could take one of those pills or they could do 16 herbs with me for 4 months. And I'm all for the pill. So you need to figure out what is the kind of plucking the really beautiful feathers from different modalities and integrating it into what you're doing.
So you were in California for a while. When and why did you make the move to the Seacoast and bring this type of work to this area?
A man.
Yes.
I met a man. I met my husband. We fell in love, and he was from Amesbury and said, I really don't want to live in California. And I thought, I love this guy, so I'll do it. I knew nothing about it. I had flown out, and my husband, who's very smart, he showed me the highlights of Portsmouth, so we ate at the fantastic sushi place and I saw the boats and, we walked along the town and I thought, oh my gosh, all of New Hampshire is just like Portsmouth, which of course is not the case. And I ended up in a Hampton Beach winter rental for a little bit, which gave me a different perception of it. But I could not be more thrilled. The more I travel, the more I do anything. If I go back to California, I am so happy to be here. This really is one of the best places.
And why do you think that?
Oh my gosh. I mean, everyone's going to say, you can go skiing one day and you can go surfing, but I like the feel of the people. In LA, there are people who they are surfacely nice to you, but they don't mean it and they don't care. And they're open to everything, but not really. And you get here and you have these genuine people who are like, all right, I'll entertain what you're saying to me. I'll try this thing. And then once you get a New Hampshire person, once they buy you, you have a lifelong friend, you have a lifelong patient, you have a lifelong customer. I love the authenticity that's here.
And it's a very small business-friendly place as well, hence why you opened FLOTE in 2017. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of your business, can you just do a quick explainer for me and tell me what exactly is floating?
What exactly is floating? Right. It's about 12 inches of water and 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt. So the salinity is incredibly high, very similar to the Dead Sea, and you float. There are different kinds of tanks. Some are very open, some have starlit ceilings, some are the traditional quote unquote coffin-y style that some people will still swear are the very best floats. But you're laying in weightless, taking the gravity out of your body. Dealing with the Epsom salt is calming your nervous system. And you have no other stimuli coming in so that your brain honestly starts to run out. Like you will monkey mind, monkey mind, monkey mind. And then it just says, oh, all right. And then that's where like the body goes into repair mode. And that's what we're missing. We need that.
And this is not a new technology. This current version that you have here is on the newer side, but the ideas behind this therapy have been around a while. I remember the last time we spoke, you told me that this kind of became a trend or so in the 70s, 80s, right?
Very much so. Yeah, there were a lot of different researchers that were, one of them originally was trying to figure out how to communicate with dolphins and thought that if he was in a weightless, sensory restricted environment, he would be able to do that. That led to someone else floating and saying, I know how to make this tank better, because originally it was a stand-up tank. And then it became kind of cool, like you would go to someone's house and they had a float tank, and you would go to like to small little places here and there. And then unfortunately, when the AIDS epidemic came around, people were not sure, could I get AIDS from a float tank? And the entire industry just kind of disappeared for a long time.
So what led to its resurgence?
I think maybe the internet and maybe people going back and realizing, oh, there's something there. And thank goodness the owners of this Samadhi tank, that was one of the very first tanks, they really pushed it and pushed it and pushed it. And then Joe Rogan, honestly, like started floating. And that was, it's hard to say like, yes, Joe Rogan single-handedly pulled the industry back together, but pretty much like we needed to hear it. We needed information, and he had a big voice. And it really, I don't know many people who have not, who didn't start their business because of him.
You started this Hampton business in 2018. Why did you make that decision?
I was practicing at Whole Life Healthcare and was lucky enough to meet and bring in Dr. Margot French, who is a naturopath, into my space. And we knew that there was something that we could do with each other, but we didn't understand what it was. And we would try to do talks places, and we talked about businesses. And at some point, each of us had floated in other areas. I was out in Vegas and found a float center. She was in North Carolina, and we thought, oh my God, like, wouldn't it be amazing to bring this to this area? And then we thought, well, there's no way. Like, no one is really, like, who's going to go into a float tank in New Hampshire? Like, it is a little more conservative. And Soleil Salt Cave came into Exeter, and we went to the grand opening. And I remember there was a line down the block, and I sat there in that cave with her, and I'm like, let's go. If this is striking a chord with people, even though they don't know what it is, what the benefit is, I know we can do it. And so we started looking for space after that.
So when the two of you each had your own respective experiences floating, what was it about those experiences that inspired you so much to eventually start the business?
Oh my gosh. I am a fairly anxious person. I can be tightly wound. I will teach someone to meditate, but it's very hard for me to do on my own. I'm an excellent do as I say person. And after that first flow, like even within the first 20 minutes, I felt my body relax. I felt like I went into what a really great meditator probably gets into, that state of just sort of nothing. And I thought, oh my God, if I can get into this, and back then it was kind of a darker, smaller tank. If I can do this and quiet everything down, like that is so useful for everybody else, all the people who are like me.
So when you and Dr. Margot decided to go all in on this business, what were those early days like?
Scary and awful, really. Like that, basically the worst. I had to figure out, number one, like, how do you get a tank in a building? I had to talk to HVAC people and sort of explain that this isn't a bathroom. We don't want an exhaust fan in. This is sensory. Like, it was a lot of learning, and it was rough, but it was sort of exciting and fun because it's brand new and it created new neural pathways. I was just happy acupuncture girl, and Margot was treating her patients. And we were just like, okay, so we're going to help with construction. Like we put the floors down in here. We did everything we did. We sort of bootstrapped the whole thing, but it was a time for sure.
I'm really fascinated by when people make the decision to reinvent themselves later in life. The older you get, the more stuck in your ways you get, and the harder it is to create those new neural pathways. So I'm just wondering for you, how hard was it for you to, quote unquote, take the leap from this thing, acupuncture, that you were very, very familiar with, that had become a big part of your identity, to then go do this completely new thing that wasn't really a huge thing in New Hampshire at the time, and to take that chance on yourself?
It was difficult. I think there is something in me that when I'm afraid of doing something, when I think, like even with acupuncture, like I'm an introvert. I like to be at home with my dogs and a blanket, and the idea that I would be talking to people or even doing this is just like, oh my God, that's insane. But when I notice that I have that fear, I say, well, you can do better than that. Like, just do it. And I make myself sort of do it. And I felt for sure that I had to make it. Like we had to do this. It's just part of my timeline. And I could have freaked out the entire way, but there was still part of me that was like, this is exactly what this area needs. This is exactly what our patients and friends and what we need. And I can do it. I can just do it. And when I got down on myself, I somehow figured out to say, like, just get back up, lady. You can do it.
And once you two got all the logistics figured out and the business was up and running, what were the early days like in terms of clientele and just getting the word out about this thing that was probably very unfamiliar to a good deal of the Seacoast?
Yeah, that was a lot. We had we're hoping as we were doing construction, if we build it, they will come. And the good thing, there were people, and we were very lucky, being both of us practicing on the Seacoast forever, we had a good community. We had people that leading up through the construction, I was probably seeing like 40 people a week and just talking about it. And again, that's where I love New Hampshire. If I get you, like if I can sell you on floating, if you understand how it might be great for you, you are going to try it. You'll give it one try for me. And then you're going to tell 10 people. And that really, it became organic. I'd like to say we know how to market now. We don't. We still don't. We don't know how to market. We're not great at it. We're very lucky that we have a great product and that we have wonderful float advocates that kind of go out and do a lot of the hard work for us.
Coming up, how you can lose weight by sitting in the cold plunge, and why Catherine wants to change the way that you spend your Friday nights. Stay with us. This is Seacoast Stories. Hey everyone, it's Troy. It's the second week of the podcast now, and I'm already overwhelmed by the amount of support I've received for doing this. The turnout for our podcast launch party was amazing. I've gotten great feedback in my DMs so far, and I even had someone stop me in Market Square to tell me how much they liked this show. It means so much to me, and it further shows me why the Seacoast is such a special area and why the stories of its people deserve to get told. To continue hearing these stories and to make this show bigger and better each week, I just ask that you take 2 seconds of your time to go hit the follow button wherever you are listening to this show. You pressing that little button will help me continue to shine a light on the Seacoast and all of the amazing things we have going on here. Thank you so much, and thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Now back to today's episode. Everywhere you look, people are touting the health benefits of the sauna and cold plunge, which is a movement that was really made mainstream by Joe Rogan and also the, some might say, controversial Dr. Andrew Huberman out of Stanford. Do you believe that the sauna and cold plunge is really deserving of all of this hype?
Oh my God, for sure. I mean, it really is. Dr. Rhonda Patrick, who, again, Rogan made famous, but her research just on sauna alone is insane. Doing, I think it's like 30 minutes, 3 times a week changes your all-time mortality. Like if you were going to die of something, it gives you like 10 more years just by doing sauna. Now, when you're adding the cold plunge, it reminds us that we're so comfortable. Our bodies are comfortable. We drive in our cars. We sit in our houses. Everything is climate controlled. We really don't face danger. And these bodies have a mechanism that, not that we need danger, but that really, like, we're going to get a huge benefit from the health benefit if we experience harsh environments. And so putting yourself in a harsh environment, and especially going from one extreme to the other, it creates all of these amazing chemicals. It activates this system. And it's something that I really feel like everyone needs to do. It's important at this point because physically we're not doing great as a culture with, I'm part of it. I love having my iPad on me. We sit in EMF. We are on the internet. We are active in short bursts, but we don't experience the harsh environments that really, really can bring out these anti-inflammatory characteristics of our body. It's a whole other system. It's amazing.
Would you say that the benefits of practices like contrast therapy are more mental or physical?
I think you're going to get both. I think it's almost like floating. It's, you get what you need. I think of it as taking inflammation just out of the body because the body feels like, okay, I could die here. This is too cold. Something's going to happen. And it starts to decrease that. So if I am someone who tends to have more of a kind of a brain inflammation, tends to have more of a mental issue, it's going to take care of that so that I am ready to face whatever is next. If you're someone that is, heavy into MMA or you're just a CrossFit guy, it's going to fix that part of you. It's going to help your shoulders, it's going to help your knees, it's going to help your back. So you get what you need when you go in there.
Now, I've cold plunged once. 40 degrees, 38, 40 degrees, did it for 3 minutes, and
good for you.
It sucked.
Well, it totally sucks, yeah.
And I haven't had the opportunity to do it again since. But for anyone who is kind of afraid to do it, what would your advice be to them for how to do it properly, safely, and how to get through it?
What we learned is that and a lot of people know Wim Hof, the Iceman, and he sort of developed this breath work so that he was able to stay in the cold longer. It is about controlling your breath. One of the first things we say to anybody going in is like, once you get in, your initial instinct is to go, and just hold your breath. And then that's where like kind of panic and this is painful. And if you're able to sit in that environment and slow your breath and keep everything moving in a really like slow, even way, you can just sit there and say, this is just a sensation and I can do this. And the beauty of that, which I think Wim Hof is so amazing for, is that if I'm driving and like there's a car accident right in front of me, I can be like, okay, like you can access that again. It's almost like this little point that you can just tag to and be like, okay, I'm okay. This is fine. My body's okay. I don't have to go into panic. So it's all about the breath.
Who is a cold plunge for and who is it not for? Who should not be doing it?
We don't want our cardiac people. If you really do have a big heart issue, those extremes are probably not going to be the best for you. But other than that, if you are physically able to lower yourself into the tank and get out of the tank, it's for you. There's going to be a benefit there.
How long should you plunge for?
3 minutes, honestly, if you did 3 minutes your first time, that's great. That is good. When we first got it, we had a girl who was probably around my size, and she's like, oh, I'm up to 8 minutes. And I'm like, let's not do that. Like, that's a little too much stress on your body. So I always think between 3 and 5 minutes is perfect.
And when you're doing it, do you need to fully submerge, just half submerged? Do you need to go underwater?
There's a in the bro world, you don't really cold plunge unless you've got your head all the way under. That is not going to happen for me, so I totally understand. And some days you'll get in there and it's just waste, and you're like, that's great. But for me, I think if you could get your heart under, if you could get just like neck down, that would be the goal.
Just to clarify for the audience, floating is probably best for those who seek to calm the mind and to just get out of your own head, because it's a sensory deprivation and it brings you to a place of silence and peace that many other modalities don't. Whereas cold therapy can reduce inflammation in the body, can just physically make your body feel so much better once you emerge, and also has the mental health benefits of, I've done something difficult, look what I'm capable of.
Yes, that's exactly right. That is it. It's like you want to have, it's something we always said in the float tank. There's people that will come in and, Joe Rogan has said that you want to have these mini panic attacks in this environment that's controlled where you're okay, so that you can say to yourself, I can do this. I'm fine. I'm safe. This is great. And same thing with the cold plunge. Like, you're like, oh my God, like I just did 3 minutes in that. Like, what can't you do after that? Because that's a lot. Like, none of us, like my fingers go numb if the air conditioning is too high. I do not like cold at all. But doing that does give you that boost of like, yeah, all right, come get me. It's great.
Here on the Seacoast, we're a bunch of go-getters. We've got lots of ambitions. We're very busy people. And so you can only dedicate so much of your week to health and wellness and taking care of you. So taking that into account, what would your advice be to someone who wants to take advantage of these modalities in terms of, hey, I've only got 3 hours a week to devote to this stuff. How would you divide it up? What am I doing? How long am I doing it for?
I would definitely try to float once a week. I mean, because you're getting that stillness, but your body's also getting the benefit. But I would definitely also add in the cold plunge once a week. Like, even if you just did those two things, the cold plunge with the sauna, you are so ahead of the game. Like, that's a perfect maintenance. If you're trying to avoid surgery, if there's a lot of people that do cold plunge for weight loss because it stimulates your metabolism. If you have a goal and like a problem that you want to fix, you may want to add on to that. But just for maintenance, a float and a cold plunge a week is brilliant. That's the goal.
Okay, cold plunge for weight loss. This is something that people are always looking for the hacks to weight loss. How can being in the cold water help you lose weight?
It's a crazy thing. And all the cold plunge manufacturers are doing research on it because obviously it's a selling point, but it speeds up your metabolism. It just does. There's people who will say, and it's all just, again, cold plunges have only been out there for a little bit, but that they've lost like huge amounts of weight. Helps shrink the fat cells, because think about if you're cold, if you're freezing, your body is burning. Like, your body is working on making yourself not so cold anymore. And that thermogenesis will help get rid of fat cells. And what they say with cold plunge is that it is the brown layer of fat, not just superficial fats. So a lot of people, you can get down to a certain weight, but that brown fat is really hard to deal with exercise and diet. Cold plunge takes that out. That's why a lot of, one of our gyms, we have all of the trainers come here and plunge, because if they're going to do any kind of competition, it's going to get them down that 1%.
Okay, so for clarification, because your body demands more to heat itself up. So your calories are energy. So you have to burn more energy to get yourself back to that homeostasis, get your body back to safety. And that kind of kickstarts the process for shedding the pounds.
Yes, you're using fat as fuel because you need it. It's a body hack. It's like, how do I get what I need out of this body? How do I hit that secret button? And running in the cold is going to do that. Cold plunge is going to do that. It's definitely a hack.
Now, be real with me. I know you own a business centered around this stuff, but if I want to do a cold therapy, do I have to do it at a place like this? Or can I go jump in the ocean in the winter? Can I take a cold shower in the comfort of my own home? And can I see similar benefits?
Totally. Right now, I know the ocean is kind of warm. So some of our plungers have gone in and they're like, God, it's like, 55. And our tank is like 40 to 45. So you're not going to get the same benefit, but you certainly can get a benefit. And especially here in the winter, yeah, dude, if you are hardy enough to plunge, do it. I am not hardy, and I will not plunge unless I know that there's a 200-degree sauna 5 feet from me. Like, that is how I want to roll. But if you are like, you're hardcore, absolutely. Like, there's people that get the trough kind of horse watering things, the galvanized buckets, and they put ice in there and they do it. And I'm all for it because I want people to have access to it. I will not do that without the fire right next to me. I just won't. So.
I guess the bros won't respect you then.
No, I'm okay. I've lost all my bro cred. I'm not sure I ever had it. So I feel okay about it.
Yes. So I want to further get real here and get your thoughts on this. So I'm researching a book right now that I'm going to write maybe later this year, early next year, we'll see. And the hypothesis around it is basically we have overcomplicated health and wellness. I think for the most part, Rogan and Huberman and the people in their sphere are onto something. And I do believe the majority of the science behind these modalities they discuss. However, there's also lots of people who are selling snake oil or who are quack doctors. And everyone can have a platform now and reach very large audiences. So because people are very impressionable, especially when it comes to hacks that are guaranteed to change your life while not requiring much hard work on your part, I get the appeal. Everyone's looking for the easy solution. That's what human beings are wired to do. And thanks to the internet, a lot of stuff in the health and wellness world over the past few years has really proliferated, and a lot of it has gone unchecked. So a lot of people have been fed misinformation, or they're so overwhelmed and inundated by the information that it's a paradox of choice. They get so much input that they don't actually know what to do, leading them to not take any action at all, which leads to shutting down and just going the complete opposite route. So the premise of this book is going to be that there's like 5 things, 5 areas that you need to focus on. And if you can do these things, you're going to nail your health and happiness, and you're doing more than enough by doing these 5 things. So it's exercise, which I love. So moving your body in the right way, food, putting the right things in your body, mastering sleep, and learning about your circadian rhythm and why that's critically important to how you feel on a daily basis. Those 3 things plus spirituality. I'm not saying you need to be religious, but you do need to be connected to something, to believe in something bigger than yourself. And then, of course, your relationships in life. That matters for your health and wellness, perhaps more than any of the other things I just listed. So I'll give a few simple strategies within those 5 categories. It'll be a short book. And then if you follow those things, boom, you're good. You're doing enough. And my premise is that you don't need to float. You don't need sauna and cold plunge. You don't need all these modalities. I'm not saying that they're not effective, because I do believe they are effective. I believe the science, and I believe in facilities like the one we're sitting in right now, but I don't believe they're necessary because they're reactive in nature. If you're doing all the preventative work I just talked about, the hard work, then you don't need this. What are your thoughts on that?
And that is the hard work. That's the hard work in this society, in this day and age, with the internet, the way we're wired. We're not doing that work. Food is so different. I mean, imagine that's a big part of Chinese medicine, that you would only eat things in season that were grown in your region. We're not doing that. We're eating pineapple in December, and it's bad for our bodies. Like, it's so much work to really have those pillars, to really keep those clean and strong. If you can honor the fact, because I think everything that we do and everything I believe in honors the fact that your body has this innate wisdom. Like, we know exactly what we're supposed to do. We might have just forgotten, or we might have covered it up with a glass of wine or a bad relationship. We know how to do it. And some of these things will jumpstart you back into, oh, right, I do need to exercise every day. Breath work is important to me. I do need to not only connect with people, but connect to some type of source. If these things can get people back onto that track, God, I mean, that's amazing. That's all I would ever want. That's all Margot would ever want. It's just hard because we are in like a deeply rooted track as a society, and it is not valuing the things you're going to write your book about, which is going to be awesome.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Enough about my big plans for later this year. Let's talk about yours. You told me in a previous conversation that you're intending on launching a business centered around this idea of social wellness, which is something that really struck a chord with me. Can you explain what the business will be and why you feel it's necessary?
Absolutely. When we went through COVID and the COVID years as they were, I remember being here when we were finally able to be open and seeing people come in who they didn't leave their house. They now, like everything was remote. You no longer had to go to the office. You weren't connecting with people. And I would watch them go into their individual sauna session or their individual float or their individual massage, but they wanted to sit with us and just talk to, because it's a need. We're humans. It's important. So what I'm opening, all the fingers crossed, in October, probably November, it's called Banya. It's going to be a sauna house. And the social wellness piece of it is that you can go with your girlfriend, with your boyfriend, with guys from workout. And we have sauna, we have cold plunge, we have an ice room, we have a mocktail bar, we have a jacuzzi, and we're going to have some outdoor space, which is going to be fun. But I love the idea that anytime I've been anywhere where I've gone to go sit in a sauna and there's someone that sits next to me, we would have never talked in a million years. We would have very easily just been there. And then here I am learning about trucking in Indiana, or what it's like to be divorced, or the first time someone's a grandmother. And it feeds me. It feeds me when we don't have to have this mask or this shell on. And there's something about obviously being in your bathing suit, we're all kind of in the same environment and we're all doing it for health, that breaks down that mask and that barrier where you can be like, hey, dude, I'm a human. You're a human. Like, how are you? Like, are you okay? And not coffee kind of chat, cocktail chat, but like, what makes you happy? Like, people are more prone to be vulnerable and to share. And I'm honestly just sort of desperate for that in my own life. It just,
we all are.
Right? I mean, we've just been so disconnected from it.
Yeah. I love that so much. I live for a world where we can have more stories starting, like not, hey, I met this person at the bar. Oh, I met this person at the sauna and we got into XYZ. There is such and that's the fifth category. It's relationships. You're like, yes, relationships are very important for your health and happiness. And there is an innate desire to tell stories, to listen to each other, to connect. And we need that more so now than ever, especially as the majority of our interactions are taking place online and as artificial intelligence continues to become very, very widespread and rampant. So there's going to be things like this that are necessary. And for example, this Friday, I'm going to a housewarming party with friends, and I was like, I really don't want to drink. I hope this isn't like an expectation. Then I asked my friend, what are we doing here? She said, oh, it's bring your own wine bottle. Like, we're doing a wine tasting competition thing. I was like, oh, I don't want to do that. So I long for the days where we can have our Friday 7 p.m.s be, hey, let's go sauna together. And that's the Friday night.
Let's get a seltzer and sauna and hang out. One of my best friends was struggling with alcohol and became sober. And I thought, okay, so, we used to go and we'd go to those parties, or we'd go and have lunch and have a glass of wine. And I'm like, what do we do? And it kind of came down to, well, we can work out together and we go to church. And I thought there needs to be something else where you really can have a happy hour of sorts that doesn't involve alcohol, because it doesn't need to. So yeah, I'm hoping that the Seacoast will embrace it the way they've embraced Float, but I feel good about it.
So over the last 6 years of co-owning Float, what have been the things that you're most proud of about this business? What has really filled up your cup and made you proud of this?
I think the thing I love the most, and to this day the most, is watching someone come into Float. And a lot of times it takes someone a lot of time, a lot of thought, a lot of kind of getting their courage up to do it, because not everybody wants to be alone for an hour. It is a weird thing to do. They're not sure how it's going to go, but they're desperate for some reason. And they go in, you give them the walkthrough, they nervously, kind of shut the door. It's the coming out. It's like this reveal. These people come out and they're blossoming. They've expanded. They want to share what they felt. They've never seen this before. They've never felt this before. They absolutely shift. So it's the shift that makes us cry, honestly. Like, it is one of the most rewarding things of the business. And even just driving up, just from the entrepreneur part of it, driving up every day, and I'm like, this didn't exist. This did not exist before we said, hey, let's do this thing. And yeah, I'm proud of it. I really am. But it is the client shifting, and it's in an hour. Like, we've had people that we're like, oh man, that guy's going to be rough. Like, they're angry going in. They don't want to hear you talk. They come out and they have a cup of tea and they just want to like tell you everything. And they're warm and shiny. And yeah, it makes every day worth it.
What have been the biggest challenges?
Oh gosh, there's a couple. Getting the word out for sure. Like, I literally have had people who live in Hampton, and we've been here for, it feels like forever, who have no idea that we're here, and all they want to do is float. Like, we're not great at that. Finding the right staff, finding the right kind of person who can hustle and flow and also be there for like kind of a heart-centered person that's amazing at what they do. It took us a while to really get that together and figure out who we were looking for. And right now, gosh, we have some amazing people, but it's the right kind of person, the special kind of person that can hold space for someone that might be having a moment after a service, and also like pretend that they don't have to whip three float rooms in 10 minutes. Staff is always difficult, but at this point, we feel really good.
There's probably some people listening to this podcast right now who are very interested in what you guys do here and would love to come by and take advantage of these services, but they also might say, it's a lot of time to invest in this, there's a lot of energy to invest in this, and money to invest in this as well. What would your pitch be to that person who wants to do it but is on the fence just about all it will demand from them?
Well, it's like that meme that if you think you're too busy to meditate, you need to meditate more. We all have time and resources. Choose where you're going to put it. And if you say, like, I'm not going to value my health right now, I'm not going to worry about these things, like about other things going, then don't complain. Then realize, like, you get what you give. We've tried very hard to make it affordable for people to come in. We have a membership where it's just $60 a month, and you can float once a month, have a sauna once a month. Any additional floats are $35. That's reasonable. Once you do it, check the value for yourself. Realize, like, what did I get out of this? How could this make me a better mother? Like, does this make me better at my work? Am I able to finally get off the Ambien? Can I lower my Xanax? Because you can. And so if you see the value in it, you'll go down that trail.
This was said to me recently regarding money, and I think it holds true for a lot of things. Where you spend your money is an expression of what your values are.
That's exactly right.
Ditto with where you spend your time. And so if you say that you value your overall health and wellness, then your money and time, how you spend those things, should reflect that.
That's exactly right. And people don't really want to take ownership of that. They're like, oh, I'm just too busy. Or it's like, if you really went through, you could do it. We've got one little pie chart and we can decide where we want to put it. And if you can do the things that will carry you through the days that you can't, if you can float, if you can meditate, if you do breath work, you're already getting like a sustained value. Even if you put 10 minutes every morning, which is something I do, of just kind of this breath work and what am I grateful for? You've already you're starting to fill that bank and increase that pie slice of my body matters, my soul matters, my mind matters.
Got one final question for you. We asked this to every guest on Seacoast Stories. Catherine, what is your mission?
My personal mission is to be of service. It just is. It is one of those things that there have been times that I wish that I didn't have that. But if I can be of service, if I can provide something of service, if I can have a conversation with you and you leave better for it, or you've learned something, God, I feel good about it. I'm just here for that.
That's Catherine Markovsky from FLOTE, located at 845 Lafayette in Hampton and 800 Islington Street in Portsmouth. For more information on how to book your first float or sauna cold plunge session, visit seacoastfloat.com, the link to which is in today's show notes. As you've now come to expect at the end of Seacoast Stories episodes, I couldn't leave Float in Hampton without asking Catherine one final question. I'm a history nerd. I majored in history in college, and at some point or another, I've studied every single period of the history of the human race. And I've been chewing on this thought recently. I believe you won't find any 20-year period in human history that is filled with more change than what we have experienced from 2004 to right now. A person who entered a coma in 2004 and wakes up in 2024 would be absolutely floored. Remote work? That's insane. The devices we all carry all the time would be mind-blowing. Most aisles in the grocery store would be foreign. Not to mention cryptocurrency, AI, streaming, self-driving cars, social media, buying anything you want on Amazon, and a reality TV star who became president? Everything has changed, and it's changed so quickly. Remember, it took thousands of years to develop any type of protection against diseases that killed millions of people over hundreds of years. People used to just drop dead like flies. It took thousands of years to learn how to grow food, to navigate the seas, to build better cities. Heck, we only learned 500 years ago that the Earth revolves around the sun. All this is to say, the greatest innovation used to take place over very, very long stretches of time, and we could ease into the change deliberately and question whether it was actually the right direction to go in. But in the last 20 years, we've stomped on the accelerator, and I believe we've moved so fast without stopping to ask ourselves, is this necessary? Is this making our lives better? And I threw this, admittedly, half-baked theory out to Catherine, and here's what she had to say.
Honestly, I've been thinking about it a lot lately, and it's social media and the internet. It's like once we kind of got the internet, once we were able to, I didn't have to go to somebody's store to buy a towel. I could just sit back and do it. I think about all the people who are single right now and on these, what I consider sort of horrible soul-sucking apps. And it's like none of that existed for my generation. We had to be out there. We had to connect. I think that the internet has shrunk that and shrunk our world so that we're just not as connected or grounded as we could be. That seems to be the big turn. It's insane to think about it. I have kids who are 19 and 22, and watching them grow up and seeing what they're going up into compared to what we grew up in, it's absolutely different. It's wiring their brains differently. I remember being, having these ADD diagnoses thrown around when the kids were little, and I thought, my God, what are you doing to engage these kids in school? Like, kids aren't outside. They're not having recess. They're taking, music out. Boys are meant to just sit and stare at something. When now their brains are wired to these cute little devices where as soon as you push a button, you get the answer or you get a dopamine hit because a game is showing you something. Yeah, the past 20 years have been substantial.
Substantial. That's a good way to put it, Catherine. Thank you for entertaining my half-baked thoughts and also for joining me on Seacoast Stories. I also want to thank all of you for being here today, for listening, and I'd like to remind you that if you enjoyed this episode, you can hype it up to the person you're sitting next to in the sauna. I'm still melting from the past few days because it was so hot, so you won't catch me there. But if you do happen to see me around town this week, please feel free to stop me and say hi. I'd love to hear your story. Until next Monday, everyone, have a great week. Live free or die.